Coming up next, we're going to a hoedown. Well, maybe not quite. We're actually going to find out about straw bale gardening from the man who wrote the book on it. Joel Karsten invited Dig In Minnesota to his backyard in Minneapolis, where we'll learn all about straw bale gardening.
Hi, I'm Joel Karsten. This garden might look a little bit different than a normal garden. This is a straw bale garden. You'll notice all the straw bales we have laid out. It's very different than a traditional garden where you plant in the soil, but there are lots of advantages to straw bale gardening over traditional gardening. If you think about straw bale gardening as container gardening, think about the straw bale as your container. The outside edges of that straw bale get exposed to the sun and the wind throughout the summer, and they form sort of a crust around the outside edge of that bale, along with the strings. And that crust of the bale, along with the strings, forms the vessel. While the inside of the straw bale, we're going to convert from being what today looks like straw, in a couple of weeks is going to look like planting mix inside of that bale. And we're going to put our vegetable plants right down inside of that bale. And this is the conditioning process. What this process involves is it takes 10 to 12 days in a normal year with normal temperatures. And it involves just using plain old lawn fertilizer. Any kind of lawn fertilizer you buy at the store that has at least 20% nitrogen. Nitrogen is always the first number on the bag of the 3 numbers. At least 20% nitrogen. You want to make sure the fertilizer you buy doesn't have any herbicide, no crabgrass preventer or no weed and feed, anything like that. Just regular old lawn food is what you're looking for. I always tell people, look for the cheap stuff because that's the stuff that works best. It's more soluble, and you're going to sprinkle it on the surface of the bale. Use about a half a cup per bale, and you just evenly sprinkle it across the surface of the bale. And you're going to do this on days 1, 3, 5. After you sprinkle the fertilizer down, you're going to spray it down in there with your sprayer nozzle. Squirt it down into the bale to try to drive that fertilizer down into the bale. That's going to feed the bacteria down inside of that bale, and after a period of 12 days, the bacteria get enough food that they now, instead of demanding nitrogen, they start to give off nitrogen as they start consuming the inside of that bale, start to decompose the inside of that bale. Then when it comes to planting day, you just use normal transplants like you would for any garden. You're going to use a hand trowel. I tell people you can leave all your spade, your hoe, your rototiller all in the garden shed. You just use a hand trowel. You're going to make a little hole down in this bale once it's been conditioned. Put your transplant down inside. You can put a little bit of planting mix around the tomatoes to help seal up any exposed roots. You don't want to leave any roots exposed, just like if you were planting in normal soil. But you'll see the bale's nice and soft inside once it's been conditioned, and it's real receptive to having a plant put down in it. Now we're going to seed this area right here. You first need to put down a layer of potting mix over top of the bale. And I tell people just put as much on as will stay on top of the bale, kind of spread it out from edge to edge and from end to end, and pack it down so it's nice and smooth, and just plant in a checkerboard pattern on the surface. Rather than planting in rows like we would in a normal soil garden. So if it's 2-inch row spacing for things like carrots, you're going to put the carrot seeds 2 inches apart, but you're going to put them like every white square on a checkerboard and cover the entire surface of the bale with things like carrots. Carrots go really well with tomatoes. You can also plant other plants. I like to do things like herbs. This happens to be Italian oregano, and you can plant herbs and other plants right in the sides of the bale as well. So plant the sides of the bales with annual flowers or with herbs of any kind, whatever your favorites are. That's what I like to do in the sides of my bales, is plant herbs. One of the great things about straw bale gardening is at the end of the season, when you're done using your bales, you can put all your straw bales that are left over into a compost pile. And by the following spring, after you've turned it a couple of times, it makes the most beautiful straw compost that you can use for all kinds of things. To improve other areas of your garden, you can work it into the soil in your perennial garden, in your other annual gardens, annual beds. So that's Straw Bale Gardening 101. If you want more information, you can go to Dig In Minnesota, and you'll find a link there to my website, strawbalegardens.com, where you'll also see my new book, Straw Bale Gardens, which is tell you everything you need to know about the whole process of straw bale gardening.